Today, we dive into the story of how life was in the 1960s for the Philippines. But before we go deeper, kindly drop in the comment section where you are watching from, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button for more videos about the Philippines. In the 1960s, the Philippines was a nation in transition, rising from the ashes of war, finding its identity, and discovering its rhythm in a world that was rapidly changing. For many Filipinos, this decade remains one of the most vivid periods of their lives. It was a time when neighbors felt like family, when life moved slowly, and when the heart of every community beat with warmth, humility, and togetherness. Picture the early morning of a typical day. The sun rises softly over small houses made of wood, nipa, or early concrete. Roosters crow from every direction. Mothers are already in the kitchen, the sound of pots and pans echoing through the home as rice cooks on a charcoal stove. Outside, neighbors greet each other warmly, "Good morning pa," as if they've known each other their whole lives, because in most cases, they truly have. Life was simple, almost gentle, and deeply connected to community. Families were large back then. It wasn't unusual to see 7, 8, even 10 children running around a household. 3 generations often lived under one roof. Grandparents sat in the shade telling old stories, mothers tended the home, fathers worked the fields or factories, and children played outside until the sun went down. Homes were open, literally and emotionally. Doors were rarely locked. People came and went freely. And when a family ran out of cooking oil, sugar, rice, or salt, they didn't walk to a grocery store. They simply knocked on a neighbor's door and said, "Pahira muna po." It was never a burden. In fact, it was expected. Sharing was part of life. Children grew up outdoors. They played patintero, luksong tinik, tagwin, tumbang preso, and Chinese garter. No gadgets. No screens. Just imagination, laughter, and the freedom to run through the streets barefoot. Parents didn't worry because every adult in the neighborhood looked after every child. If a kid misbehaved, any mother nearby could scold them, and their real mother would thank her for it. Respect for elders wasn't a rule, it was a way of life. And mealtimes were sacred. No one ate alone. Families sat together around simple wooden tables. Before eating, they prayed. After eating, they talked. Dishes included tinola cooked slowly over fire, adobo simmered in clay pots, steaming bowls of arroz caldo, or freshly baked pandesal bought from a nearby bakery. Leftovers weren't thrown away. They were reheated, reimagined, reused. Food was always treated with gratitude. Sundays were special. Mothers laid out the best clothes for church, clean, pressed, and smelling of soap and sunshine. After Mass, families gathered for lunch, then visited relatives. It didn't matter if travel took hours. Visiting family was worth every step. There were no malls. No televisions humming in the background. Just conversation, laughter, and togetherness. School life in the 1960s also carried its own charm. The day began early, with students walking long distances to reach school, sometimes through muddy roads, sometimes under the scorching sun, sometimes beneath a banana leaf used as a makeshift umbrella. Uniforms were simple. Boys wore plain white shirts and shorts. Girls wore blouses and skirts. Shoes were cleaned and polished, often passed down from an older sibling. Classrooms smelled of chalk dust and old books. Teachers were strict, respected, and deeply feared when they needed to be. They were mentors, role models, and sometimes second parents. A single look from a teacher was enough to straighten any misbehaving child. Lessons focused on reading, writing, arithmetic, history, and character formation. Values weren't theoretical, they were lived daily. At recess, students ran to vendors selling banana Q, ice candy, panda cocoa, and gulaman. After class, Children hurried home to help with chores before being allowed to play. Hard work was part of growing up, and every child understood their role in the family. As the country grew, the cities gained new life while the provinces held on to tradition. Manila, Baguio, Cebu, and Davao buzzed with jeepneys, calesas, and early buses. Jeepneys, born from leftover American military jeeps, became symbols of Filipino creativity, decorated with bright colors, chrome, and painted names honoring family, faith, or humor. Public markets were alive with activity. You could smell fresh fish, fruits, vegetables, and spices from afar. Vendors shouted prices. Neighbors bargained. Children waited for 5-centavo treats. The market wasn't just a place to buy food, it was a social gathering, a daily meeting point. Most households didn't have modern appliances. Clothes were washed by hand. Water was pumped from a well or delivered by bucket. Food was cooked on charcoal or kerosene stoves. Floors were scrubbed with coconut husks until they shone. These tasks took time, but families did them together, building bonds that lasted a lifetime. Evenings were calm. Without smartphones, computers, or endless distractions, people sat together, talking about their day. Some listened to the radio, drama serials, music programs, and news updates. The sound of static and warm voices filled Filipino homes. For many families, the radio was their window to the world. Television was a luxury. If one neighbor owned a TV, children and adults gathered outside as the screen flickered with black and white images. Simple shows brought joy, comedy programs, variety shows, and the evening news. The entire street would fall silent, listening intently to whatever the announcer said. Entertainment blossomed. Music from Elvis Presley, the Beatles, the Cascades, Pilita Corrales, and Eddie Peregrina filled jukeboxes and radio waves. Young people danced in living rooms, plazas, and on special occasions. Serenades, harana, were still a common form of courtship. A young man might gather friends and a guitar to sing under his beloved's window. Courting was slow, respectful, and serious. A man asked permission from the parents. Visits were chaperoned. Letters were exchanged, handwritten, folded carefully, and kept in drawers for years. Fashion reflected elegance. Men wore polo shirts, slacks, and well-combed hair. Women wore dresses, skirts, and hairstyles inspired by global trends. Barong Tagalog remained a symbol of Filipino pride. Weddings were community affairs where everyone contributed, cooking, cleaning, decorating, and celebrating. The film industry flourished. Movie theaters were packed with fans eager to watch the latest films featuring Fernando Poe Jr., Susan Rosas, Dolphy, Nora Honor, Amalia Fuentes, or Terso Cruz. These stars shaped an era of cinema that Filipinos still cherish today. Despite the beauty of the decade, life had its challenges. Poverty remained widespread. Many provinces lacked electricity, paved roads, or advanced healthcare. Typhoons brought devastation that took months to recover from. But what made the 1960s remarkable was the resilience of the Filipino spirit. Communities worked together. Neighbors shared food, labor, and support. Even in hardship, people found reasons to smile. Politically, the country moved through change and self-discovery. Young people became more aware of national issues. Schools encouraged patriotism. Children learned the Panatang Maccabean and sang the national anthem with pride. The dream of a better nation lived in every Filipino heart. Technology was simple but exciting. Telephones were rare. Cars were expensive. Most people walked, biked, or rode jeepneys. But these limitations brought closeness. Letters delivered by the post office carried emotional weight. A telegram brought urgent news. Every message mattered. At night, the sky was darker and clearer. Streets were quiet. Families sat outside their homes, enjoying the cool breeze. Children fell asleep to the sounds of crickets, distant radios, and the gentle hum of life. Today, when people look back at the 1960s, what they remember most is not the struggles, but the sweetness, the simplicity, the togetherness, the respect, the laughter, and the steady rhythm of daily life. The Philippines of that decade was a place where every person mattered, where communities felt like families, and where the most valuable things in life weren't material at all. Life in the 1960s may have been simple, but it was full of music, full of connection, full of stories, full of heart. It was a time when people truly lived in the moment, appreciating the small joys that modern life often forgets. Though the decades have passed, the memories remain. They live in old photographs, in fading letters, and in the stories our elders still tell. They live in traditions we continue, in the values we inherited, and in the spirit we carry as Filipinos. And in remembering what life was like in the Philippines in the 1960s, we honor not just the past, but the people who shaped us, the parents, the grandparents, the communities whose love and strength built the foundation we stand on today.